there may not still be a lot of fun going on in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, but at Roosters, the fun never stops. It's a fun, casual joint. It's a Tuesday. It's an appetizer threes day. That's Justin Zwick, Bobby Carpenter, Nicole Cox. I am Austin Ward. And Ohio State back on the practice field on this Tuesday, and they're getting ready for Nebraska. They're getting ready for homecoming. And, Bob, they're moving on from Oregon.
Are they?
They're trying.
As you need to.
It's just a question. I think that they should. That's
How much time can you dwell on it? All you can do is get better.
I don't know if you dwell on it, but that's going to stick with them for a while.
It is. The good news, it sticks with you emotionally, but it doesn't hang over top of you.
Doesn't drag you down.
As far as rankings or polls. Now, there's an opportunity. They lost and they dropped 2 spots, for heaven's sake. Texas got smoked at home. Yeah. They were on the road. They lost by 15. It wasn't even close. Texas made a push at the end against Georgia, but that thing was kind of cooked at half. Mm-hmm. Ohio State didn't look like that.
That's true.
Maybe you'd like the defense to look a little more like that Georgia defense, where they're bringing pressure from a variety of different ways. Some odd front, some even front. 3, 4, 5,
do that.
6.
Yeah,
stunts, twists, games.
A lot of different stuff. So I think that's looking at that that's aspirational. That would look nice. Offensively, there's some things you got to clean up a little bit and get Zemaholski ready to go and make sure that they're good there. But outside of that, you figure out what you need to do. You get some guys healthy as they're going to be, and then you try to push forward and realize this Nebraska team, they're 5-2, and they did just get bludgeoned by Indiana, but they're still they're a formidable foe, and they've got a pretty good line, and they've got a good young quarterback, and you got to put heat on him like Indiana did, and then might throw you the ball.
Well, that is the $1 million question, isn't it? Or $10 million question, JZ.
How are you going to get pressure on the quarterback? Yeah, that I don't know. It surprised the heck out of me. I know I wasn't here last week after the Oregon game, but didn't expect to let that kid sit back there and just do what he did.
They call it stroking the ball.
Well, he was stroking the ball. I've never, as a quarterback, heard that one before, but
that's what our coaches always say. Don't let him sit there and stroke the ball.
Yeah, fair enough. That was surprising me. I don't know. Week in and week out, it's always they're not getting enough. They did enough, or it's just and then it was a no show. It seemed, and that wasn't necessarily just the defensive line, in my opinion. I think the defense in total really didn't show up for that game.
We lost
4 quarters anyways. 4 quarters anyways. We lost by 1 on the road. I think it was a great game. It was fun to watch. All that good stuff. Bobby just talked. We don't drop in the polls. We played a really good team on the road. Lost by 1. By 1 second, really, because if we get down and we are able to kick a field goal, who knows what happens. But moving into this week, I read something on the Raiola kid. He's 78% completion versus man, 35% versus zone.
Which zone is, you can be confused.
100%, you can. So, I just look into going into this game, what do they look into any of that? Do they want to say, all right, well, maybe we want to go and try something different against this guy?
That would reveal itself on the film as you watch it.
Well, we'll see what we're going to do against him this weekend, because we seemingly played a decent amount of man in our last game.
Without any pressure.
And we kind of saw how that went. We know this kid is pretty good against man, so if we're going to give him time to throw the ball as well, I just want to, it's going to be interesting to see what the look is like this week, I guess, and what we give this young quarterback who does have they have a good team. They have a top 15 defense last year, I believe, with a lot of those guys back. I think they're still in the top 20, 25 of stats defensively this year. Last week's game didn't help them at all, but I think it is a good team, and I think we got to be ready to go. I just don't. It'll be fun and interesting to see what wrinkles maybe the defense comes out with this week, because for the last week and a half, a lot of people have been talking about how we didn't get any pressure, how we didn't give those looks. How we had 5-6 guys dropping to 5 to 8 yards off the line of scrimmage while we're getting burnt deep. A lot of those questions have been brought up. So how they change, do they change at all? They say, no, we like our system. We're going to keep going it. We're just going to get better at it. It'll be interesting to see.
The system.
Well, not the whole system, but just throw some more wrinkles at them, I guess.
I like that.
Nicole, you wanted to make the point there. It was a 1-point loss to the now number 1 team in the country on the road. Not a death sentence.
We played a great team. A great team. They just smashed Purdue this past weekend.
Yeah, well,
I know. It
would have been problematic if they didn't.
I could see that.
Then we would have to be talking about time zones being unstoppable if they couldn't even beat Purdue.
I agree. You never know, though.
Yeah,
there
no.
could be an
Gotta
upset.
go play the game.
And then that would be really bad if they lost to Purdue. But we played one of the top teams, in my opinion. They looked great that night, and they were on their home field, and it was extremely loud in that stadium, and that adds to everything going on. And the little mistakes that were made, I guarantee the guys are going to learn from that, and I think that's what they've been doing all week and are going to do all this week too. So,
and I think in the new era of college football as well, we're so used to, man, that one loss, what's going to happen now? It's a different world now. I mean, we're playing, conferences are bigger, you have bigger programs having to play each other that not necessarily played each other, in the past. Mm-hmm. You're going to come up with this type of stuff.
I don't know if there'll be anyone in the Big Ten or SEC that goes undefeated anymore. Like
that's the thing, yeah.
Like running the whole table, winning it all. Like 16 games through those conference schedules is going to be really tough. Because then if you beat someone and you're really good, there's a chance you're going to play them again. Yep.
And it's hard to beat a good team twice, right?
Yeah.
And I think the perspective of it as well is even not just with the expanded playoff, Jay-Z, Ohio State's loss by 1 point on the road to Oregon would not have disqualified them from any of their other goals normally. Like, they could still, if they win the next 6 games, they're going to be in, unless like chaos breaks out and a weird wonky tiebreaker keeps them out, which is possible.
I saw a scenario that Bill Bender tweeted out where there could be 5 11-1 teams. Now, that would require Illinois to beat Oregon, which I think is the biggest stretch of all of that. But there is some elements of weirdness.
I brought that up last week because I was like, someone asked why I was saying, well, Ohio State doesn't actually control its own destiny. Maybe in 3 weeks they could again, but currently they don't because of not playing Wisconsin and because Illinois could also finish with 1 loss. Like, now that's a doomsday scenario, but their goals would still be in play with 1 loss to win the next.
If they're
6 games,
11-1 and they don't make the Big Ten championship, I'm fairly confident they'll be the 5 seed.
That's still a good spot to be in. Mm-hmm. Now, you wouldn't win the Big Ten, but you would have beat Michigan, and you'd be in position to play for the College Football Playoff National Championship, which
be playing
with the extra games that they have to play nowadays. Do you think coaches might say, "I'll take that 5th
that's
spot"?
What I'm saying. If you'd rather do that, do you want to play in the?
I guess you get a bye week if you're in the top 4.
Yeah, but if you're not, do you want to play the championship game, and then have to play the next week, or not playing the championship game?
2 weeks to get ready.
And then you have 5 seed is kind of an appealing spot to be.
Well, because you're going to. Well, is it? Do you want to take on Navy? Navy Army? Saw what happened last time after you played them.
Incredible, right?
They're looking good.
Navy and Army are both undefeated. There's a good.
They're going
to have to play each other twice at the end of the year.
Maybe Marcus Freeman will handle that.
Well, maybe he will, but maybe he won't.
I do have a question, though. Would you guys, when you played, would you prefer to play in the Big Ten championship? And then, I guess it's never really been a scenario, but do you like having that long break?
The thing is, if you don't play in the Big Ten championship, you're going to basically get the same time off as if you play and win it. The really crappy part is if you play and lose it, then you got to play the next week. Mm-hmm. So
that's like a scenario you
don't want to be. That's really not where you want to live.
No,
is if you lose that game, especially if it's a tough, hard-fought game. Imagine like Oregon 2.0. You lose that game, then you have to play again the next week, and it'll be interesting. The one element now, everyone's like, "Oh, the 5 spot, it'll be great." If you have to play one of the academies, I don't know if people are going to be that excited, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because for a while that Navy stat where like whoever they played lost the following week, Ohio State was part of that with the Virginia Tech loss. That every defensive coach would be like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, we're the best of the non-conference champs, which is why I think there will ultimately be some change that happens, because people are like, well, the 5 seed's great. You get to play the group of 5 champ, and then you get to play the Big 12 champ, which you would feel good about. But I think that'll all end up being taken care of eventually. But try to win as many games as you can.
That's getting down the road.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be looking that far ahead because Nebraska is Saturday, and there is plenty of intrigue about what Ohio State's going to look like. They are not physically the same team that showed up to Oregon. We know that Josh Simmons is going to be out. We know that Will Kazmarek is going to be out. There's a possibility that Lathan Ransom could be out. So physically,
I heard Kazmarek because his strength coach in the summer, primarily Schlegels, they didn't do enough trap. They didn't do trap and shoulder work.
So this is on Schlegels?
I put it on him.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I did.
Schlegels.
You got to the bottom of it. It's breaking news on
breaking news.
I don't think I'd put that on Schlegels.
I do, because he's in charge of that. He always says have a trap-tastic day, so Traposaurus Rex What are we talking about?
Okay, well, that's big. That's confirmed right here by Bobby Carpenter, former Roosters live show co-host Anthony Schlegel, causing injuries to the Buckeyes.
That is not the case.
Oh. Well, we take it all back.
I'm ending the rumors.
It's on the internet. It's real.
It's real.
Not our Schlegs.
But so physically, it's not the same. Mentally, it's not the same. The coaching staff is all trying to make adjustments. So I think, yes, Ohio State should absolutely handle Nebraska 99 times out of 100 based on the lineups on paper. But this is a different challenge, Nicole.
I think, though, that I can't remember if I said this last week or not, but I feel us losing a game, I think it's good for mental health. I think it's good for growth, and not that I would wish our team to lose ever, but I think it's good we did it now. And that way they know we don't want to feel this way again. And so I think we have that going for us going into this game coming up, even though we've had a bye week, which I'm sure even fuels that even more. And definitely as the season progresses. I mean, they don't like the feeling.
No.
They hate it, They
hate it, yeah.
So I just think that's something that's going to give us strength through all of this.
So a couple things. Number one, the loss forces you to, number one, take a really hard look at what you're doing. Now, hopefully you don't overanalyze it and change things that are working, but it forces you to do that. Whereas when you win a close one, you might whitewash some of the bad part. It's not really as bad as we think it could be. So it forces you to take that hard look. I do agree with Nicole. The psychology of losing a game, the lack of desire to feel like that again, but still everything's in front of you. I think that's there. And then just the pressure where the last couple of years you're rolling into the final game of the season undefeated. There's just this big look at it. Whereas now it's we've lost the game. Not that game doesn't mean as much because of that, but there is an element where you're a little freer, I think, being able to handle that.
Yeah, I think when we lost, was it Virginia Tech? We went to Michigan State the next week. Does that sound right, or do I have my years mixed up?
The Michigan State game was in October.
So we had just lost, though, I feel like. Or
we lost that
earlier in the year, but
week 2.
I feel like they went up there and just played free, and we scored a ton of points, and it just kind of takes that pressure of being the undefeated team and winning every single game off your back, and you just say, all right, we still have everything we want to do coming into this season. We didn't get that one, but we don't have that pressure just going out and being undefeated anymore.
Well, Ohio State hasn't always had this opportunity, if that's what we're going to call that. And really, the Buckeyes have no choice but to treat it as one, as whether you're silver lining or a honest evaluation of where you are, whatever. You learn through failure. And Virginia Tech is the most prominent example of that for Ohio State. But really, you look at these key losses for the Buckeyes and for Ryan Day. At Michigan, we know that that's the last week of the regular season. In Georgia, that's in the playoff. You have no opportunity to correct it after that. Oregon is really the last example of that they had, and they made sweeping changes after that one, Bob. And there's a limit to what you can do when you don't have free agent signings and you can't hire coaches off the street. But they reshuffled.
You could probably hire coaches off the street. I don't know if there's limits to that.
But the options out. I guess Nick Saban is free, so
that'd be a good one.
Go out and do that. But there aren't sweeping changes that you can make to the staff or to the roster that you have in college football.
There's a couple coordinators I think that were fired. Some guys floating around out there.
Of those.
Some guys floating around out there, Austin.
Okay.
Don't know that you want to go get one of those guys.
The unemployment line may not be a fertile ground.
You want to walk with me down this thread or not?
I really don't, because you're not going to change anybody. But maybe you tweak what you're doing a little bit, and maybe just how you're doing it. And we talked a little bit bringing pressure. The one thing a lot has been made, and I don't know if I heard Billy get into it earlier, where the issues in the fourth quarter, both offensively and defensively, not scoring a lot of points and not really getting stops in the fourth quarter. And defensively with that, I think if you can be more variable throughout the game, coverage-wise they are, but as far as bringing pressure and then being variable, it's like a batter going through the lineup against the pitch. Third time through, you get a little bit better feel for it.
You've seen his stuff.
Yeah, so if you've been pretty comfortable all game long, and then all of a sudden, okay, I'm feeling this, they've never really got to me this far, and now I'm starting to identify the coverages and where they're going. That is going to maybe open you up. And maybe there's an element of PTSD from that Peach Bowl with you're giving up big ones down at the end of the game in the second half. against Georgia. But you've got to find that happy medium. And scared money don't make money, Austin. I mean, you got to eventually – we got to heat them up a little bit. And it's the mantra always was when we were there, like, stop the run, affect the quarterback. You do those two things, you're going to put yourself in a really good position to win. No one likes to be Quinn Ewers spitting blood out of their mouth on the sideline.
That's not the spot you want to be in. You would rather be at Roosters on a Tuesday.
Stuffing curly
curly
cheesy breaking fries in your
cheese
beak.
and bacon.
The best.
So you don't even need to get a broken jaw for those. You just have to have $3 on an appetizer.
$3.
I think
Appetizer Thursday.
covers. It's a triple threat.
Yeah.
You got
Triple
you got the
threat.
pork.
We still have, Nicole, like 2 weeks left.
Yeah. November 4th is
So
the
register.
last drawing.
The Buckeye giveaway.
I
Yes.
can't believe that's the last
There
one.
may or
Oh
may
my
not
I know, is that
be
nuts?
an opportunity to go to a playoff game in
There
there.
is. There is.
I think
Vote early,
there's-
vote often.
Let's
Yes.
go.
I think a game day sideline experience against Indiana is
Yes,
in the mix, which
that's
is
on
suddenly
there.
a top
Ooh,
10
yeah.
matchup.
Pre-game
That's gonna be a-
sideline, but
well,
still,
Yeah, but
pretty amazing.
that is an elevated.
Mhm.
That is what they would
That's
call an
gonna be a big
elevated
one.
situation.
Awesome
Yeah.
experience.
Something for the game at the end of
Nice.
the
And
year.
we have some basketball too. It's like
Jake
a Coach
Diebler
Diebler
coaches
yes.
show
Oh, yeah.
Roosters experience.
One-on-one with Jake Diebler.
See, when
Maybe.
I fill in on the
Play 'em
morning juice, I
one-on-one?
actually get to read. I actually get to hear the whole ad. So now I know all the other things they can win, which you don't tell me to keep me from registering so that I can win them all myself.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
there's no way I could anyway
No,
because
it's
there's
1 in
33 million
yeah.
people
Yeah,
registered
33
The odds are
chance
against
to
you.
vote.
Yeah.
But
heading
register
into
every day.
November 4th. Yeah, that's the benefit.
Just like voting.
Nicole, what are you expecting on Saturday?
So my score prediction, I'm in between 42-7 or 42-10.
Okay.
And
That's a good place to live.
I
Mm-hmm.
think, let's just say 42-7.
Okay. Well, Indiana held them to 7.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't think this Ohio State offense can match the mighty Hoosiers' prolific 56-point output?
I don't. I mean, they just. I'm not going to speak.
I mean,
for it.
I'm
the
not-
only
I'm not sure.
only
I'm just giving you
reason
a hard time.
that I didn't make it that high is because I think Nebraska is going to have the fuel from losing.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to kind of bring them in to this game
And that's the
a little
best,
hotter than they were.
best they can
I like
muster is
that.
a
The
bounce back.
loser fuel.
Yeah.
Yes,
Austin
losing.
drinks that all the time.
I have so much of it. It's the only thing I stop.
It's on tap.
It's what gets me going. Anything else going on for Roosters, Nicole?
Just the giveaway.
Okay.
And like we've been busy for NFL games and college football, so come in.
There's a
hang
game
out with
every
your
night
family.
until
I
like
know.
the end of the year, right?
It's a great
Perfect
time of
year.
year.
It
It
is.
is. It's perfect
Get
weather.
into
right
Roosters
now.
and have a beer and watch the game.
And the test menu is still going.
It is. It is.
Got to take advantage of that.
I think all of those things have very high ratings.
Yes.
So hoping
yeah.
they
So
get on the main menu.
they should.
The kids
they-
love the spice. If you take the spicy Nashville chicken sandwich away, they'll be very upset.
That's why you got to remove the interim tag sometimes, Bob, and just say that this is the choice.
There you
This
go.
is the full-time menu. It's coming.
I will pass along that feedback. I think that sandwich is very popular, though. So
It's
Good.
not going
I
anywhere.
think it has a
Good.
good chance of being on
What
the
do you want
menu.
from Roosters? That was the answer.
Yeah.
Times
I love
2.
it.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. But Nicole is. She's going to go on with the rest of her day. We're going to bring in Berm for the second half of the show as we continue to get ready for Ohio State and Nebraska on Saturday in the Horseshoe. We are at Roosters. It's a fun, casual joint.
Hey, Buckeye fans! As the official wing sponsor of Ohio State Athletics, Roosters is kicking off an incredible giveaway you won't want to miss. This football season, we're giving away 12 ultimate Buckeye experiences. 3 drawings, 12 winners with prizes including tickets, sideline passes, and 2 trips to a Buckeye playoff game. Go to roosterswings.com to register and see all the details. 3 drawings, 12 amazing prizes. Register today and every day. Roosters, a fun, casual joint.
Welcome back into Roosters. It is a fun, casual joint, and it is livelier than ever because
Hey.
Berm
So
is
fun,
so cash.
fresh off your off week. How did you enjoy the weekend?
I watched a lot of football.
Yeah? What'd you learn?
I learned that everyone sucks,
No.
pretty much.
I don't think that's right.
No, I mean, I don't think. I think the biggest takeaway from the weekend is that there's not what I would consider a great team across
Texas
the country
was
in college
elite.
football. I thought Texas was the best team in the country heading into that game, and then
by the middle of the
and then-
second quarter, you recanted your.
I did. I said, well, maybe they're not, which is, I think, fair. Sometimes
fair,
you're
yeah.
allowed to have a change of heart. They did not look up to the task. And now, kudos to Georgia and Glenn Schumann, their defense coordinator. Like, they find ways to get after the quarterback that are very creative. I was stunned a little bit at how just ineffective Quinn Ewers was in the passing because, like, you throw it where they're blitzing, basically. And Texas did not have an answer. And I think it's because they couldn't tell where the blitzes were coming from.
Seeing ghosts.
And Quinn certainly, I mean, It was very interesting to watch Steve Sarkisian pull him in the second quarter and then put him back out there at the start of the second half. It made me think of the Denzel Burke struggles against Oregon and wonder why Tim Walton didn't do that for.
It really paid off for Quinn though, because
they came back and
they did
made
score
it a game.
little bit.
But yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from the weekend. I don't.
It's funny.
If you left the Oregon game thinking Ohio State can't win a national championship, if you watched football this past weekend and didn't think
100%.
anyone can win it, then I don't know if you're paying attention.
What's interesting about the Quinn Ewers benching is I talked to somebody from Texas, and I was like, hey, is there a scenario if Ewers is struggling? Like, maybe it's due to the injury. Maybe, the abdominal strain isn't fully healthy. Would you, consider going? Would you consider going to Arch? He's more mobile, and they're like, never. Sark said he never is going to pull a guy. He hated coming out. He was a quarterback at BYU. Told this impassioned story about when he was a quarterback and had bruised ribs. They tried to take him out in the red zone for a QB draw, and he Malachi Browned him and waved him back off the field and ran it himself. So I was very surprised because I was like, well, maybe he's injured. But then they put him back in. He played better, obviously, in the second half. But it was very peculiar to me to ultimately see that happen. But the good news is Austin's back on the Vol train and all aboard.
All aboard the Vol train.
Yeah, he is. He's excited.
3 straight weeks Tennessee hasn't scored a point in the first half.
Why don't you bleed
They
orange?
like to lure him in.
But they've won 2 of those 3 games.
Well,
Not going to participate.
Alabama's lost 2 of the last 3,
Yeah,
and
That they have.
I think it is pretty amusing to see what's going on with Alabama. Where it should have lost the last 3 weeks in a row, as you said, Bob. If you're not ready in college football anymore, and I don't know if there's been a lot of talk of speculation about the transfer portal and NIL leveling the playing field. I'm not sure if that's the case.
I think in Indiana's case it did a little bit.
The ability to overhaul that roster quickly did help. I don't know that means year in and year out.
Curtis Rourke, I could think of a handful of teams that he would have helped, that he probably would have preferred to go to over top of Indiana, that were like, nah, we're good.
Well, if he's got a healthy hand, that's going to make them pretty dangerous down the stretch as well. But I think, I don't know what the cause is. I just think that every week, if you don't show up ready to play in this era, you're gonna get got. Berm said that last week. No one's going to get through unscathed.
And the reality is that there's 2 very different types of teams being built by the transfer portal. There's Indiana, which has brought in, 47 players, but most of them are 4th and 5th year guys. A lot of them who played at James Madison with Kirk Sidnetti. A lot of guys who played.
Googled him already.
A lot of guys who played a lot of football, and that's generally a recipe to win.
Yeah.
And then there's the other teams which are bringing in just super talented guys who bounce around a lot. And I think one area where the playing field is leveled across college football is that the teams that are building exclusively from the portal and bringing in 25, 30 guys a year, I wouldn't say that the other teams are raising up. I think those teams are just emotionally and mentally immature, and I don't think that they handle adversity very well when things start to go poorly.
Florida State?
That's one. Sure, but college football, the programs that have built themselves into what they are for the last 100+ years did it because you developed guys inside of your program. And if you just completely abandon that notion, I think that you're going to run into these years where Florida State stinks, dude. They're awful.
They're not as bad as their record is.
I think they might be worse.
Well, the point is,
they're 1-6.
they are more talented than what they are showing on the field. To your point, I think there's a little bit of I'm out. Deuces.
Yeah. So
what are we going through this for?
Yeah.
I'm just going to redshirt the rest of this year and go
it's
somewhere.
certainly interesting. The landscape of college football is wide open, and I think.
But if we talk about a team like Alabama, though, 2 of their best players are now 2 of our best players.
Sure.
So that's hard. That's hard to replace. And they lost. I imagine a handful of other good players when Saban retired.
Caleb left, but outside of that, Julian wasn't going to play this year. And Seth, I don't think that they were very
They were pushing him out the door. So.
Yeah,
which is wild.
Yeah.
He's our best offensive lineman.
Worked out great for Ohio State.
Well, I know.
But then they realized that maybe it wasn't him.
Maybe
sure
it
wasn't.
It's
wasn't.
not you, it's me.
Yeah.
Well, I think if we're going to deep dive into the Alabama, they thought they had Ryan Grubb as the offensive coordinator coming from Washington with Kalen DeBoer, and he ends up staying in Seattle, taking the job with Seahawks, and their offense is
He doesn't think
abysmal.
it sucks up there. He likes it.
He likes it up there.
Their offense is pretty abysmal, and they got Missouri this week. They still have, I think, LSU coming up.
They've got LSU, which could be the dagger. How bad do you feel if you're the Tigers and you're being drugged down by the USC just weight that's you're trying to
Are they?
row to the playoff.
Aren't they like number 11 now in the country?
They are.
Maybe that was early enough. Everybody's forgotten about it.
But when you come back,
Beach Purdue beat them pretty bad.
Beach Purdue. Beach Purdue is the best. See, the best part is USC got out of the Pac-12 because they couldn't beat Utah, and then they went to a conference like half of Utah. It's a bunch of Utahs.
It's a bunch of Utahs, better Utahs.
Utahs all over the place, which I wouldn't have put Maryland even in that bucket. Like, if you're going to lose to Maryland, at least lose to a good Maryland team, not this one.
I'm sure that the next conference that Lincoln Riley joins will be the right one for him.
I think I saw a stat.
American?
Iowa has more explosive plays this year than USC. Of
course.
On offense.
Well,
That's wild.
It used to be their defense couldn't stop anybody. I'm like, now they struggle like offensively at times. And you're losing to an average to bad Maryland team.
I definitely am not someone who thinks you need to build through the transfer portal, but were I Ohio State, I would probably be having some back channel conversation with Zachariah Branch out at USC about.
I loved him.
Maybe next season you want to just give us a shot. Maybe.
He was up here. Him and his brother came on visits.
Oh, they were
Zion.
They were going to come to Ohio State until Lane. What's his name?
Lincoln.
Lane Bryant. What's his name? Kiffin Bryant.
Lane Kiffin.
Until he got hired at USC.
Lane Kiffin.
Bryant.
Lincoln
Riley.
Lincoln Riley.
They were going to Ohio State, and then Lincoln Riley got hired, and voila.
Okay. We have digressed very far off track from
Lincoln
Ohio State.
Riley's got that visor, so his grain.
It's a terrible visor.
He does. And he has I think $80 million left on his.
He's got a beautiful house there in California.
So you broached this topic about the Georgia pressure they were bringing against Texas, Bob. I think there were a lot of, or maybe not a lot. I don't know how many. There were some Ohio State fans I know for sure that were watching that and saying, "Why can't the Buckeyes do some of that?"
Well, they just fire Ryan Day and hire the Georgia defensive coordinator. I mean.
Well, I don't think that will do anything in the meantime.
Now, you could probably poach him off the roster. He sat out the last couple of games, so he's got his red shirt still.
God.
That's why everybody. Before we get to this, I listened to nonsense where you're like, "Oh, fire Ryan Day, hire the next new hot coordinator." I'm like, "Who? You mean Ryan Day or like Lincoln Riley? Because that's working out really well at USC." And someone's like, "Kurt Cignetti." I'm like, you know how many people, if they knew Kurt Cignetti was actually him, that when they hire these guys, and by the way, it's a 1-year situation. Yeah. Hey, Tuck coming. That works really well too. For a year, and let's see if there's any level of sustainability.
That's right.
So I'm not here to just say flash in the pan, poof. I'm all in. Let's get married. USC did that, not working. The pressure. I think
Oklahoma.
Yes.
I mean, how much regret do they have that they didn't just go after Josh Heupel instead of?
No, because they fired Heupel.
They already made their choice with Josh Heupel a long time ago. They couldn't have brought him back.
It's time to revisit that decision. Were I Oklahoma, which I am not.
I get it, and that's just hire this great. If you knew who it was going to be the guy, believe me, the search firm would be like, hey, for $25
here's your guarantee.
I'll give you the guaranteed next best. It's got to be better than my current coach, who we're winning a lot of games and doing it, but people aren't happy. It's okay. I have it. It's in this magic egg. And when you crack
we found him.
He found him.
We'll tell you about it after you cut this check.
He can succeed anywhere.
It
doesn't matter conference situation.
You'll never lose your rivals.
And make sure that you give 15% of it to Jimmy Section.
I want to remember everybody this. Texas A&M hired a coach who was fresh off a national championship. And how did that work out? I mean, what are we talking about?
Seems like it's difficult.
So anyway, it's harder than you think. But you look at the pressure that they brought. They were going from odd front, 3 down, even front, 4 down, moving back and forth. And it looks really complicated. But in reality, some of the things when you package them, Ohio State has personnel to do that. They can get some guys on the field and they can build those things out. It's just a function of okay, maybe those are things that we need to do now to give them different looks. And they don't need to do it all the time. You do it on the third down package, second and third down. Hey, we'll do a little bit of this.
Sprinkling some of it in. So like you talked about earlier, they don't get complacent and they're like, oh, we're in this formation. They're going to be in this coverage.
Yeah.
We're going to run this play and it's going to be a touchdown.
They bring in this package okay, we can get a lot of stuff here. Yeah. So we've got to scale back offensively what we do because we're not sure. Could be 6-man, could be 5-man, could look like 6. It's only 3, but then we're still getting a free guy because we're not really sure who to block. And so when you do those things, it just you know more than I do. I was on the other side. I was like, man, I loved when we used to do our 3-3 stuff. It's oh, we'll jump into a 4-2, we'll do a 3-3, and that was kind of what I did there. to be able to kind of go back and forth. They have the body types and the ability to do that. Yeah. Like some of it's just getting an alignment maybe with everybody there and making sure that it's not too complicated. And some rooms may have to sacrifice getting some more guys on the field at this position and some more over here at that one.
All of this stuff to me always goes back to recruiting because that's where things go. But like when Ohio State recruited Jalen Walker, the number 11 for Georgia, really, really hard as a linebacker. He wanted to play in a defense like Georgia's where they rush the linebacker all day long, and he's pretty damn good at it. Number 10 at Georgia, Damon Wilson, who Ohio State recruited very hard as a defensive end, wanted to go to Georgia where they rush him as a linebacker. Michael Williams there. Like they have guys, and they just let them go, and they just go get the quarterback. That is their job. And
it's a good job.
And
they did a good job.
I think Ohio State has been nationally, the perception of what Larry Johnson has changed considerably nationally, and I don't think that kids, despite the fact that you'll still see a lot of young players talk about Chase Young or the Bosas, and so, but then they're looking at the last 5 years and going, none of that's happening. So everything that is being sold, or this is where we're going to get you, is not actually occurring. Georgia's telling these guys, you're going to come in here, you're going to rush the quarterback, you're going to be on the field as a freshman.
And the Eagles are going to draft you?
And then they do. So I think that there is a
Sirianni.
Nick Saban coming out and calling the Ohio State defense antiquated this weekend. I don't think we're going to see Ryan Day after the Nebraska game get on the mic and be like, "Well, I'd like to listen. Where's it now?" But like
some guy screaming my name,
Nick Saban saying that. I know that rubs Ryan Day and the coaching staff in a way, but you can't argue it. It's not wrong.
I thought he didn't
argue
well
today,
as
did
he
he?
possibly could.
No, I mean it is antiquated. But what his response was, when it's not working, it's antiquated. But
there is truth to that.
Sure.
When you have
but that hasn't
Bosas
worked
and Chase Young, it works a lot better because you have one guy who always is
just going to be
giant eraser. Like, okay, we have to put 2 or 3 guys on. It opens up a lot of stuff.
When you're watching Purdue get pressure against Oregon, and they certainly don't have a Chase Young on their defensive line or a Bosa. They're saying
Idaho or Boise.
They're saying we're going to find a way to get it.
Yeah.
And Ohio State has been exceptionally stubborn in the last handful of years with their defensive.
But what's amazing
identity
is I go back and look at the 2021 Oklahoma State Cowboys. I believe they had 53.
I think it was 55.
Even better.
Yeah.
We'll just pump those numbers. Okay,
let's say 53 or 55.
Let's say 54. Just call it in the middle.
It's over right in the middle. It's over 50.
It's over 50.
They had 50 plus sacks, which is putting you probably top 5 nationally. And if you look at some of the things they did, I remember watching, like, okay, what game would I watch? And I feel like they would really empty the chamber, if you will. Oh, let's go watch Bedlam. That seems like a big one, where they're going to play a really good offense. What would they do? I was like, I like a lot of this. There's some good stuff.
Right. They were doing that with a 6-foot-tall, 215-pound true freshman linebacker like Colin Oliver, who
had like 10 sacks that year.
Right, is not a player that Ohio State fans would have ever wanted to be recruited to Ohio State. So it's just like you just have to. How when you hire Jim Knowles, that was the reason you hired Jim Knowles, and then you don't force any of these things to actually occur. I think that people, understandably, are shaking their head like, what is this?
Jay-Z, these things that Bob's talking about with even just showing maybe 3, maybe 6, from a quarterback's perspective, is that something where they don't even have to necessarily get home to pressure you if you're having to take time to process and make a decision?
You're taking time to process, saying, all right, well, you have a short amount of time, but all right, if he comes, I have this guy. You can't go through every one of them, though. You can't figure it all out because you don't have enough time for it. So, I mean, when you get those guys who, all right, he did blitz. I'm going, they're dropping. Just the mental games you can play because, like you said, when they blitz, you want to replace them. And when you're dropping other guys and just giving looks that are, crowded and you're not sure what's going to happen, you don't know where your out is. So if all of a sudden you see that guy coming, you may go to where you think your out is. There may be a defensive end standing there, backpedaling.
The last thing you're doing, though, is going to sit there and try to get to your deep route.
Well, no. You know, man, I'm somebody's coming free here. If they do, I know what I have. Yeah. Somebody's going to come free. I'm not sure which one it is. I think I have an out for if this guy comes. I might throw it away or dump it over here if this guy comes. But you're not saying, all right, I'm going to take my drop. I'm going to sit here comfortably. And I'm going to throw the ball downfield.
I know that people don't love when we talk about other sports, but I think about Joe Burrow against the Browns, right? The first time the Bengals have beaten the
That's
Browns.
actually the same sport.
Yeah, well, they don't like when we talk about the
Professional
NFL, or they think it's, we're deviating from the topic. But watching the way that the Browns play Joe, who's probably he's one of the faster processors in all of quarterbacking, right? He is confused as hell against the Browns every single time because you never know where that pressure's coming from, and then they just put their corners man and say we can.
Well, and you have Myles Garrett coming on one side, so he's like, whatever other pressure, I got two guys blocking this guy.
2 seconds. We need 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And if you can just apply that pressure, and even if it ends up being 3 seconds, at least you're hurrying up the quarterback's.
Oh, anytime you hurry up. When I used to be able to drop back and actually had time, I still got rid of the ball quick because that clock is just going. I'm expecting somebody to get hit. Somebody to get in.
And
there.
that's the thing. Like into the fourth quarter, if
that's
you've been
where,
used to having to get the ball out 2 to 3,
that'll rush a quarterback.
You can drop 8 occasionally.
Yeah.
You can drop 7. It's like there's
because
still
his internal clock is still going to be going off. Knowing like, man, I've been getting beat up here today. Like
Quinn Ewers spitting the blood out of the side of his mouth. Like, I don't want that happening again.
Yeah.
Like when Matt Roth dumped Tim Schafer on you.
Yeah.
We didn't want that again.
Ankles, fingers popping out of play. Like, you remember that as a quarterback when you're like, oh, we got a 3rd and 8 and they're calling play action again. This is going to end badly.
Watching the Niners,
I have a tight end going across the field. That's my only out here.
Watching the Niners play against Patrick Mahomes on Sunday.
Yeah.
They just kept running right by him. Like, that's not pressure. I understand you're technically in the backfield, but you're 3.5 yards away up the field, and any quarterback worth his weight. And I think that's part of the problem here is that you're only going to play 1 or 2 of these guys a year that can actually expose what's going on. And so maybe you don't really think it's a problem. But when you play a good quarterback who can say, okay, these edge rushers just keep running right past me, I'm just going to take a step
I'm just going to stay in the pocket
and throw the ball 60 yards down the field without any actual pressure.
So Bill Parcells used to always say, I know it's a deviation, but he's a Hall of Famer. So the worst place you can be on the field is behind the quarterback. Yeah. Now, there are guys that can bend and get around and different things, but it's the combination of, listen, when we bring pressure, all out, get there, fill up rush lanes. And then a guy like Dylan Gabriel who can run, you see some of these guys, like when we also rush, if we're rushing 4, maybe we don't need to go as crazy. We can just press the pocket because he's
kind of keep him in there.
He's been hit. We can just condense it and squeeze it so he's not going to like that feeling as well.
And he's a smaller quarterback. We can affect him that way. Get those big bodies around him.
But what about Nebraska?
Well, I was just going to say, how much of that can be installed and incorporated in 2 weeks as you get ready for Nebraska?
I don't think it's a big jump because you can package it. Like the coverages are the coverages. They have blitzes, and so it's like, okay, instead of us running it out of a 3 down or a 4, let's do some 3 work. We just bring another guy. We can do some different stuff as far as the personnel are out there. And you're talking about changing blitz paths mildly and doing some things. But to the quarterback, that makes all, and the offensive line, that can make all the difference in the world between going from, because they have rules. When you have 4 down and an even, that's one set of rules. 3 down to odd. And if you jump back and forth, then the comfortability level, and it's like, well, who are these guys? Also, now we're subbing, and so it's different body
types. Then you have 2 linebackers who are sneaking up around there. Like, where are they going to go?
Like, you have guys that can get there, and so that it's not all that hard. We didn't run all that much stuff defensively, but it'd be like, okay, if I show over here, what do I think they're going to do? I'm going to get this. I'm going to get the center to turn this way. Then we can run a pick game on the backside with the other 2 guys, and maybe I show there, maybe I show inside, I bail out, maybe I show inside, and then I'm wrapping around to the other side. But you get the center to turn, and you get the slide to go one way or another, and then you get that situation where it's like, you were like, oh gosh, I thought we were turned it that way. He didn't come, or he ran around this way, and he's fast enough to do it. And they brought guys over here, and it changes your picture because you're like, oh, he was supposed to come, he didn't. Everyone's over there. Now I have to throw back into this blitz, and there's unblocked.
Well, even for offensive linemen, though, all right,
yeah,
we're going to go here, and then all of a sudden they switch, and then that's when you see a tackle just looking at the quarterback like, I didn't block a single person, and he's getting his, he's getting killed right now.
In the back, too, like, who am I picking up? Like, they don't get out in the route. There's other stuff going on, too.
So, Nebraska, they are coming.
Yep.
Saturday, it's noon.
Children of the Corn.
Big noon. How many more big noons?
As many as they can
I think
get.
it's going to be like almost all of them.
Well, Nebraska for sure, Penn State for sure, Indiana almost guaranteed.
Is there a cap where they can cap how many times?
Nice.
Northwestern, because it's at Wrigley, probably will be different.
They can't put that at big news.
Yeah, that's the time that has been suggested.
maybe for BTN.
Purdue probably won't be. I mean, Purdue probably will be at noon. I don't know.
I think Purdue might get a
3:30,
a late flex.
I thought that there was a limit to how many times Fox could gobble up Ohio State.
Well,
Just
I mean,
your
if you're Penn
imagination.
State, you got to be unhappy with
Well,
that.
this I told
Like
you
our biggest game of the year, and you're making us play.
games.
Yeah, and I knew they knew it,
in
but
the current
that
Big
doesn't make
Ten.
them happy about it.
Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, Penn State. Those games, that little triangle is always going to be big noon. It is never.
It's just
not
unfortunate
going to
because
be.
you have a really good atmosphere
Oh.
on a whiteout and a big game.
Well,
I mean,
guys complain to me. I'm like, dude, this is what it was the
Hey,
last time you went there.
Guess what? You can still be loud at noon if you're interested.
yeah, it's not the same.
It's not the darkness.
How committed are you?
The fangs come out
the
at
lights
night. Bill
with the
Connolly
white.
told us the
The
night is when the fangs
10 hours
come
of
out.
drinking.
Things going- Yeah, 10 hours
Yes.
of drinking.
It's
All
hard.
All you have to do is start drinking earlier. It's
Yeah,
not
if you
that
start
hard.
Nobody wants to
But
wake up at.
If you start drinking at 2 a.m., you're fine by noon.
But then you can't drink the night before because you're drinking until
or you just
2
drink
a.m.
all the way through, I guess.
And
but
that's
then
what-
it's hard.
Can't
It's hard to
drink all
make.
day if
It's
you
hard to
don't
make
start
the
in the
whole
morning.
game. I don't know.
But the morning is the night for the noon game. That's the problem. So it just
Whatever.
never
The
ends.
morning is the night.
The World Series is more important.
What
Eggs
is that
and
going
eggs.
on right now?
It will be.
Well, the
Oh,
other
what
reason that
cares?
Fox did not want that to get away was because it's the most lucrative political advertising weekend in history.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest draw in the country. It was never going anywhere other than Fox. But that's not this week. That's next week.
Yeah, Nebraska's.
Who's going to win on Saturday, Berm?
Ohio State is going to win on Saturday.
That's what I thought you might say.
I think that Nebraska is going to come in kind of wounded, spiritually. After you don't go
Loser juice.
into Bloomington and just get absolutely embarrassed like that without having some residuals.
Does that look like Ohio State playing?
That was rough.
Indiana?
Indiana, yes.
Don't usually see Indiana do that to anyone.
No,
that
that was
was
impressive.
rough.
Like Lydell Ross out there.
But I do, I think that it's going to be a bad weekend for Dylan Raiola, and I think it probably would have been anyhow. But when you just measure this up or stack it up with whatever Ohio State is now feeling heading into this weekend, I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
when you have two teams that both drank the loser juice, as Nicole talked about,
Yeah.
which
There's a lot of
loser
juice
is
out
It's a
there.
lot of loser juice.
If it's
A lot of loser
fermented
juice.
for a week,
We've had
does it
loser
give
juice
you
for
more-
2
That's
weeks.
stronger.
Yeah, it's
Stronger.
stronger.
I've got to. I'm trying to be more realistic in our score predictions because I feel like people are getting annoyed when we're constantly like, well, 52-6.
I said 30. I mean, I hit one of the numbers last week.
But I almost hit one a couple weeks ago.
31.
I said 34-30 Ohio State. I mean, it would have been
It's a pretty good call.
34-32
Yeah.
had they kicked a field goal. So I think Ohio State wins fairly comfortably. I'm going to go with like 41-7, something like that. I know that the Ohio State defense has got people on edge and people
On
stink.
tilt.
They
is what
stink now.
say.
I would imagine they're going to show some things to Dylan Raiola he has not seen, and I don't look at Nebraska's weapons as someone who can.
It's like looking at a magazine for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think
You don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A little bit
Jay-Z.
dangerous, a little bit excited, but also
A
scared.
little bit scared. I don't know.
Jay-Z. I know that's a tough transition. But
Yeah, you know what? I'm in the same boat. I think it's 38-10. You know, somewhere along. I think we cover and take care of things, and you know they're
what's the line? 28 or 24?
it's all
25
25
and
and
a
a half
half.
earlier.
25 and a
Yeah.
half.
So
I'm going to say I think Will Howard gets down. We get that actual field goal that we never had before. And so
just for fun, just go kick it early.
yeah, I'll say 45-10.
45-10. All right. Sounds like a lot of covers for the Buckeyes on Saturday. It's homecoming. Can't wait.
Are you going to say 52-6?
Scarlet out.
Am I gonna
And
say
Urban, we got the 2014.
I haven't been doing 52-6. I've been doing 38-6.
Oh,
We've got the 2014 National Championship reunion
It's all happening.
Hey, all right.
headed by Urban Meyer.
Yes, let's
back
go.
here.
I'm not going to make a score prediction. I'm just going to wait till bold predictions. I got to think about it.
all right.
I'm
That's
just
fine.
only going to put the
It's
pressure
kind of
on.
unfair to put it on other.
I know, but
I mean, I understand.
Yeah,
these
he's
two,
the
but
host.
they're not on
He's the
show
host of the
rest
show.
Nothing
week.
he can do about
gets
it.
to do what he wants.
I made the rules.
I do what I want.
And I've been wrong a lot, so no one wants to hear me do it anyway. But we appreciate everyone who did watch, all of us in here for the live show on the podcast at Roosters. It's a fun, casual joint. Thanks to Nicole Cox, the whole team here at Henderson. Thanks to Justin Zwick, Bobby Carpenter, Jeremy Birmingham, and Bill Landis right over there. I'm Austin Ward. Have a great week. Enjoy Ohio State and Nebraska. See ya.